Happy New Year and welcome to Moderate Fantasy Violence, a podcast about 2023 and the film and TV that released during it. I'm Nick.
And I'm Alastair.
And in this episode we will be talking, about both the general trends in film and TV during this year, and we'll each be giving our top 5 releases in both those categories. But before we get into all the hot summary material, Alastair, what else have you consumed in the last fortnight?
So yeah, I've been trying to catch up with as many 2023 films as possible over the Christmas period. Some rewatches, some watches for the first time. And one movie that I thought was very good, didn't make the top 5 of the year, but it was a very engrossing film, was a film called Paradise, which is a German language sci-fi film on Netflix. It's flown quite under the radar, doesn't made quite a big splash. It's one of the reasons why I want to big it up on this podcast so a few more people can watch it. Shout out to the cyberpunk Instagram influencer Kyoto Wolf, who actually put this on my radar. But yeah, it's a quite dark dystopian sci-fi film set in a future where you can donate years of your life to other people for money. The main character is a salesman for the company that does that, who basically pressurizes poor people into the hard sell to give their years of their life to rich people in exchange for some commission. And then his life unravels when the flat him and his wife own burns down, and it turns out that as collateral for the flat, his wife put up 38 years of her life for the mortgage. And so then the process begins where the company he works for extracts 38 years of his wife's life, and this sort of sets him on a spiral to basically realize this is all really bad, what can we do about it? And it's sort of quite a dark thriller. There's various twists and turns along the way. There's more to it than initially meets the eye. So if you're in the mood for some sort of dark dystopian drama, I can recommend this film.
Yeah, that sounds very, very bleak. Yeah, very bleak in a way that's very reflective of the bleak world we live in.
Yeah. I mean, it's chiming with lots of things you see in the news, such as like big tech and pharmaceutical companies exploiting people. There's like this sort of vast kind of sprawling areas where lots of in this sort of dystopian future where lots of poor people live, again similar to things like Blade Runner that have depicted these versions of the future, where people try to escape these desperate slums by like selling like decades and decades of their life so that rich people can be young forever. So it's really hit that bleak dystopian tone quite well. No,
it sounds very straightforwardly dystopian. Did this come out earlier in the year again? Is this you catching up, as you say?
Yeah, it came out in 2023 on Netflix. I assume it was probably direct to Netflix film. I guess it might have been distributed in Germany in cinemas. As part of a plan to like catch up on things that were recommended, or I saw either recommended on, Instagram, Twitter, Blue Sky, etc., or like in person, trying to like track down various things before the end of the year. And this, I like this because it looks genuinely like quite unusual, this whole kind of like giving years time, and there's some quite unpleasant kind of medical scenes where and they show kind of like what happens when they actually like almost like pretty much suck years of life out of people and give them to other people, and the consequences for that. Like most good dystopian films, there's like an underground resistance who are kind of organizing to fight back against it. It's definitely got a sort of slightly original take on the sort of dystopian resistance film.
Sounds good. I was just trying to rack my brains to work out where I've heard the whole taking years off their life thing before. It might have been in the old Marvel 2099 cyberpunk line, actually. The line where Spider-Man 2099 originated.
Oh, right, yeah. It's definitely a sort of concept that floats around in sci-fi, It's getting at that kind of underlining political issue of the wealthy having, more and, better lives, and, at the expense, of the poor, which is a recurring theme in, cyberpunk stories, things like that, wealth and class inequality.
It's a very obvious sort of metaphor, I guess, to really drill down on the idea of people's lives just being taken from them in exchange for capital or for money or for the chance to just go on living, I guess. Just instead of having it be in the form of money, just have people suck years of their lives straight out of them.
Yeah, pretty much literally. And also, there's a small number of people who live, off kind of the suffering of others and things like that. The film's quite good at having these like very sort of glamorous, young, beautiful people. And there's quite a clever scene when there's like a meeting of the board or senior management of the pharmaceutical company, and they've cast all people in their sort of 20s to play all these corporate executives, and you think like, this looks a bit weird, and then it's like, because these people are supposed to be like in their sort of 60s and 70s, but they all look really young because they're literally sucking the life out of other people.
Sounds good. I think I can definitely see that working as an incredibly grim cyberpunk dystopia.
Yeah. So that was a bit of a Christmas cheer that I got into over the festive period. Something to really make you feel in the spirit of giving that I think Christmas sums up. But what about yourself, Nick? What have you been up to since we last spoke?
I have been slowly picking through the Netflix TV show The Diplomat over the course of the last few weeks. Well, I started it in the week or so before Christmas, then I went away for Christmas, and now I'm back, I'm going to finish it. To be honest, it's probably basically going to be a bonus honourable mention for my TV chart. I think it would probably have made it into the bottom end of the top 10 if I'd seen more than 3 or 4 episodes before I wrote the chart, but alas, I didn't quite manage to squeeze it in. But anyway, yeah, The Diplomat, this is a Netflix comedy drama political show starring Kerry Russell, who I last mentioned, I think, as the female lead of The Americans. This is another show about a married couple who are sort of involved in statecraft espionage type stuff, except this time, yeah, obviously, as you might be able to tell from the title, rather than being a spy, she's a diplomat, trying to manage relations between America and, well, she's the American ambassador to Great Britain, and while she's in Great Britain, she gets involved with a foreign attack on a British aircraft carrier, which, well, I don't really want to spoil the plot. It could be any one of a number of hostile nations, as she discovers as she tries to work out who the hell it is. So yeah, it's show run by Deborah Kahn, who was one of the, I think one of the better, or possibly even the best, post-Sorkin West Wing writers. As someone who has seen the West Wing enough times to pay attention to whose name is in the writer's credit, she definitely wrote a lot of the good episodes in the last 2 or 3 years. And yeah, this is her show. This is another sort of, as I say, light touch comedy drama politics show. It's not quite the same as the West Wing. I think it's got a bit more sort of contemporary post-thick of its cynicism, but I don't know, there's still a certain amount of optimism in there, even if it isn't framed through quite as many inspirational speeches, and there's definitely a good sense of sort of whimsical office comedy alongside the life and death international relations.
Yeah, this does look really good. It's been on my list to watch and sadly not got around to it. Yeah, maybe one of the contenders for the 2023 titles that's been overlooked. But yeah, the trailer looks really good, and there's someone quite high profile playing her husband who's also a diplomat. Is it Rufus Sewell?
It is him, yes.
Yeah, and he's great in everything, and sounds like they've got a really good creative team. I didn't actually know that, it was one of the key West Wing writers who's behind it. Yeah, that sort of makes total sense because, the West Wing was obviously incredibly good at like taking the kind of minutiae of government diplomacy and statecraft and kind of spinning drama out of it. So I can imagine that's why this show's so good because, it's a good, education in statecraft writing working on the West Wing.
Yeah, one of the things this show does very well that the West Wing perhaps didn't do all the time as well, is focusing in on the nuance of this marriage at the centre of the show between, the main character played by Kerry Russell and, as you say, her husband played by Rufus Sewell, who the vague idea is that he's in the past been a sort of bigger name international relations figure than she was, but he's kind of made a few big fuck-ups, and as a result, she's now getting her chance to shine, and he's meant to be sort of stepping to the side a bit, and he's having trouble actually doing that.
Yeah, that sounds like a great source for, interpersonal conflict. Yeah, as well as obviously, the big drama you alluded to of what's going on with the international relations in the aircraft carrier. You can kind of condense that down to focusing on one marriage and the relationship between two people.
Yeah, again, it's a lot of the time it's actually just quite funny, because a lot of the time it's just the joke is that this guy just can't leave alone, and there's a lot of comedy exasperation, a beat which Kerry Russell plays very well. I mean, she plays everything well. She was great in The Americans, and she's great in this. She's getting a bit more chance to do sort of a bit of comedy and a bit of farce here, as she and her husband sort of, as she basically just constantly tries to bat him away from the diplomacy. And yeah, it's very good. It's very entertaining. I highly recommend it, and to be honest, it would probably have been in the back end of my top 10 if I'd had time to get through the whole show, but based on the entirely arbitrary self-governed system of ethics that I run my top 10 on, I didn't include it because I'd only seen 3 or 4 episodes.
I think it makes sense that there's rules that, it's got to be the calendar year, which is fairly easily defined, and you have to have actually finished the work. That makes sense.
But yeah, no, this is really good, and they have already commissioned a second season. This being Netflix, I wouldn't necessarily get my hopes up that there'll be any more than 2 seasons, but, at least it's getting that bare minimum of 2.
Okay, cool. So I should catch up before the second season comes out. Sounds like also it's been a good year for Kerry Russell, that she's done this, and also Cocaine Bear. Who could forget that? That was also this year, believe it or not.
Yeah, also, again, Kerry Russell getting to stretch the comedy a bit, or at least the knowing silliness.
Yeah. Someone who can feel very pleased about the work they did in 2023.
Yeah, no, she's great. I believe I've recommended The Americans a fair few times on this podcast already, but yeah, she's great in that as well.
Okay, and now to the main event, the best media of the year. For those of you who haven't listened to one of our end-of-year summary reviews before, what will happen is Nick and myself will count down our top 5 films of the year and then attempt to arrive at a unified MFV top 3. And before that, we will also give out our Raspberry, which is, what we thought was the worst film of the year. However, before we dive into the best and the worst, Nick, what did you think of film in 2003 as a whole?
To be honest, my main thought is, wow, I did not see that many / enough films in 2023. Should I even be trying to have an educated opinion? But I have a podcast, so I guess I'm going to try it anyway. Yeah, it's been, in my opinion, a bit of a strange one. It's one of these ones that feels very much like towards the end of the era year, where a lot of the trends we've been vaguely hinting at or expecting for the last, honestly, since we basically started doing the podcast, are seemingly coming to fruition as the general superheroes / franchises / cinematic universe's approach to making films seems to finally be, I don't know, dragging its way to a bit of a close. The top line in a lot of summaries seems to inevitably be the full-on arrival of some level of superhero fatigue, especially, the fact that a couple of Marvel films have seriously underperformed. Although, it seems to be franchises in general that are struggling a little bit as we reached a point where people just struggle to care that much about yet another sequel to the same old thing. Like Fast and Furious and Mission Impossible and Indiana Jones have also put out films this year which, in at least 2 of those 3 cases, I think the movies themselves were meant to be at least alright, but no one seemed to really care. And that's before you get into the 4 DC films that arrived with barely a fart. So yeah, it's very much finally reached a point where we seem to be getting to the end of the old thing and wondering, I wonder what the new thing is.
Yeah, there's definitely been a sort of general sort of shrug of disinterest at some of the stuff that's been released this year from the big players. In terms of Marvel, obviously a lot's been made, especially I think the Marvels didn't make as much money as people expected, considering the original Captain Marvel made over $1 billion worldwide, I think. But I mean, it still made a very large sum of money. It's just the expectations are incredibly high because it's Marvel. And I don't know, I do feel that if, they pull another huge, colossal hit, the original Black Panther, which kind of blew everything away in terms of how successful it was and well liked, I think then this talk of fatigue will dry up quite quickly. Yeah, clearly DC have been going through a rough patch for a while. Between just terrible reviews and people not caring about their films. But then again, they're relaunching with James Gunn, and I don't really see, an alternative taking over. Even a big film like Napoleon was also sort of disappointed people this year. There's a lot of hype in the build up to its release, and then it sort of arrived and it went. So I think it's film in general that some people seem to be just not enthralled with this year.
Well, yeah, I don't really know what the big exciting breakthrough releases this year were, outside of the 2 superhero films that broke through, of which we'll be hearing more later, and the 2 films contained in the word Barbenheimer, which, again, I'm sure will be coming up.
That was the biggest, cinematic event of the year, and also it was, a cultural phenomenon. It was one of the few things that actually became just a talking point across, all of society. So, there are definitely ways that cinema can inspire people to really pay attention to it, become part of the broader conversation. Obviously, this Barbenheimer thing was done by accident, as people seem to focus in on the vast tonal differences between these films and the fact they've been released on the same day. Hopefully, we won't get studios cynically trying to recreate this by deliberately packaging something to have this kind of viral success, because this was done by accident, and I don't think it can be recreated in a way that isn't incredibly cringe.
Well, they were both the sort of films that have the potential to do well in, but there's a combination of a sort of an obvious recognisable hook and an auteur filmmaker. The combination of Greta Gerwig and Barbie and Christopher Nolan and Nuclear Annihilation. It works. You can sell both those films to people.
Yeah, and they were likely to be successes in their own right. It's just by the combining of them, they managed to, get people's attention.
That's good news, I guess, in that it shows that if you get, the right combination of good filmmaker and actually appealing premise, you can still have a successful film. I don't really know what that means for the future of, here's a decent action movie cinema, but I'm sure someone will work it out. Not me. I don't have any ideas.
Yeah, and you're right that sort of other franchises were also underperformed this year. Yeah, even my beloved Mission Impossible franchise that I love more than is probably makes sense, but yeah, the film was good and it had lots of good critical responses and things like that. But again, it didn't set the box office on fire. I don't know, because people just, were moved, maybe because, they feel when you're getting to the 7th Mission Impossible film, the 10th Fast and the Furious film, are people feeling that actually this is just becoming derivative, or just, people aren't inspired anymore. It is losing its freshness.
Well, I think it just becomes, maybe hard to frame it as an event that is worth going and spending, I don't know, whatever a cinema ticket costs nowadays. I mean, maybe if these things are basically just, the next episode in the show, then why not just watch them at home like all the other TV shows?
Yeah. Which also, links nicely to the fact that, streaming's still a big factor, and that some of the big players this year were like Netflix, Apple, things like that. Martin Scorsese released a film through Apple, partly because it's something mad like Killers of Flower Moon cost $200 million to make and only grossed about $80 million to Apple. That's kind of nothing, and having a nice big prestige picture to get people to sign up to their streaming services is worth more than whatever the film made in itself. But other studios can't really sustain those kind of losses.
Although it's interesting that even though Killers of the Flower Moon was an Apple TV movie, or at least a movie, I don't know, I guess mostly funded by Apple TV, it's not currently available to general Apple subscribers. Like, they haven't just shoved it straight on their streaming service. They are still making you actually pay to watch it, which again is a sign that, and again, this will be coming up again, I'm sure, that people are slightly backing off from just straight up throw everything on the subscription service as an approach.
Yeah. I think partly because, they do need to make money from these things, apart from, I guess Apple, who are just phenomenally wealthy.
But even they're not doing it, so.
Yeah, I don't know. Actually, that does really surprise me in the sense, I don't really know what the thinking behind it is. I don't know if they're waiting for the Oscars to roll around, or at least the nominations, and then when Killers of Flower Moon gets showered with Oscar nominations, then they whack it out to maximise eyeballs on it, or maximise subscriptions. Like, you got to see this film. It's got all these Oscars nominations, and this is the only place you can see it. But it doesn't make a huge amount of sense, but I don't pretend to understand how these companies work.
I think a lot of it is just them coming to the economic realisation that just spending hundreds of millions of billions of trillions of dollars on content to throw on their streaming service isn't attracting enough subscribers to make those billions and trillions back. This may not be, in fact, the model of the future. It might have been the model of the future when Netflix and only Netflix were doing it, but I don't know if there are enough people who want that many streaming services to sustain this many.
Yeah. People like Disney have just vast quantities of content, because they've just amalgamated everything that Disney and Fox have accumulated over the years.
I should stress, I'm not saying that a Netflix monopoly on streaming services is a good thing. I'm just saying I don't think the market can support loads of them.
No, and I think also, the venture capitalists that funded these platforms for their, massive expansion are probably now saying, right, you've gone through your growth phase, it's time to make some money. Hence, probably, Netflix cancelling vast amounts of stuff.
Yeah, last week Amazon Prime announced that the current tier that most people are on is now an advertising supported tier, and if you want advert-free Amazon Prime, you now have to pay more money, which is really internet intensification. You must now pay more money for the same quality of service.
Yep.
We are not able to keep growing or expanding anymore, and we have to get more money out of this somehow.
Yep, I did see that. Yep, I do love the internet trend of basically give us more money to have exactly what you had before. That's always good, yeah. And also, both Disney Plus and Netflix have rolled out advertising-supported cheaper products and things like that. Yeah, by also raising the price of their non-advertising products, especially Netflix, who put up the cost of the regular tier, then put in a tier under that with adverts that is probably about the price of Netflix used to be.
Yeah, and I should stress, Amazon Prime can go shovel shit. I don't watch their service enough to pay more for a non-advertising version. For a service that I use about 4 times a year to watch The Boys and a couple of other things. Yeah, I'm not paying more money. Yeah,
the weird thing with Amazon Prime is it's kind of rolled up with also free delivery of things like that. Yeah, the main reason I pay for Amazon Prime is the free next day delivery. But it's a sort of slightly odd business model. I mean, I guess because they're the everything shop. So it's kind of everything all just mixed up together.
Yeah, anyway, meandering a bit maybe, but I feel the point, if anything, is that yes, this is probably relevant to TV as well, but yes, the streaming model appears to be floundering, which might possibly even be more consequential than the franchise superhero thing also starting to wobble. The vague combination of various things that have been aggressively pushed for the last few years appearing to show cracks.
Yeah, especially as streaming services are actually one of the few things that weren't leading big into big superhero IP, apart from obviously Disney, but they're kind of, again, the owners of everything. But yeah, I mean, this has been the year we saw actors and writers strikes. So yeah, further indication that the business model of Hollywood is not working for creatives, it's not working for the companies, things like that. Yeah, and even though the strike seems to be pretty much resolved now, it resulted in a lot of films being postponed. We didn't get June 2 this year, for example. The Spider-Man movie's been pushed back as well. But yeah, it goes to show that there's a lot of uncertainty about the future and people don't really know what's going to happen, even despite the fact that the strikes might be resolved. There's still, uncertainty about the future.
Yeah, and again, I don't have a certain answer for that. That's why it's difficult. I mean, if based on the success of Barbie, is the solution just, to find some franchises to milk, which haven't been aggressively adapted into the ground. But to be honest, I think a lot of that stuff would probably just fall flat unless it was also had some sort of strong angle, directed by Greta Gerwig. I don't think we're headed for, a wave of adaptations of increasingly obtuse shit, like a new Stingray, a reboot of Bucky O'Hare. What's Earthworm Jim up to?
Yeah, exactly.
These are obviously based on my specific childhood.
yeah. But I mean, that's what Hollywood does. The nostalgia machine milks people's childhoods. That's why they're circling around everything from Sonic, to Star Wars. So yeah, things that people liked as a kid. But yeah, again, there's always a sort of diminishing returns to this sort of thing. And yeah, you have to find, something that works, like an angle that works, directors or whatever that can do a good film, stars that people really like and want to go and see.
I mean, for the record, I think what's next is probably a flood of attempted video game adaptations, because over the last few years, one thing that has apparently succeeded is, The Last of Us and the Mario film. And also, I guess, the Sonic films as well did all right. This seems to be the last remaining big well of story content that hasn't been flogged to death. So we'll see how many video games they can churn through in the next few years before they wear that out as well.
Yeah. I don't know. I feel that, you're right that there's a sense of things need to change, but also a complete sense of no one knows what. And Hollywood, I think, is just going to still keep doing what's worked in the past rather than take a gamble on something new. So yeah, we're likely to get more superhero films in the future, even though Marvel are having a pause next year and only releasing one film.
Oh yeah, it's quite a quiet year for DC as well. I believe the Sony universe of Spider-Man characters is possibly going to release more films than Marvel and DC combined.
Oh wow.
So I hope you like Venom 3, Kraven and Madam Web, because there's a moderate chance we might cover at least one of them.
I guess
it's Venom 3. We might cover Venom 3.
There you go. Watch this space for finding out what we thought of those films in 2024. However, shall we start with the Turkey Prize?
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I've done quite a bad job of being on top of cinema this year, so to be honest, I don't actually think this is really a convincing example of the worst film of the year, but the thing I saw this year that I probably thought was least good, or at least deserving of praise, is probably Ant-Man 3, to be honest. Ant-Man 3 Quantumania. I don't hate it, I don't lie in bed grinding my teeth about it, but it is probably the least inspiring thing I saw this year.
Yep, ditto. That's what I put down as what I thought was my biggest disappointment of the year. Yeah, it wasn't horrendously awful. There's definitely been worst films of the year in the past, such as Batman vs Superman, for example. I didn't get around to at Christmas watching Rebel Moon, that everyone says is appalling. So yeah, that didn't feature on my catch-up of 2023, but I did feel that this film was kind of just weirdly lacking in charm, which is what Marvel kind of do quite well, and the sort of very simple thing of what makes Ant-Man quite fun and interesting to watch is seeing him shrink and then next to everyday objects, or making everyday objects expand to comical size, such as what if a Thomas the Tank Engine toy was suddenly the size of a real train and things like that. Whereas making him go into this quantum world of bizarre CGI creations just meant that you had no idea about the scale anymore, which kind of ruined the point of the film.
Yeah. I mean, there were films this year I saw which, I don't know, I thought tried something maybe and didn't quite succeed and just sort of lay there farting. I would mention The Creator and Foe as examples of that, films that lay there farting. But yeah, Ant-Man 3 does ultimately get to win the prize just for not really trying to do much interesting at all. It's just a blur of special effects and occasionally okay jokes.
Yeah.
Oh well. Never mind. Let's crack on to the positivity.
Right. Do you want to do any brief honourable mentions first?
Honourable mentions. I've got two. First up is Molly and Max in the Future, the film we saw at the London Film Festival, which is not quite in the top 5, partly just because that's the way it works out, and partly because I wasn't 100% sure if it's eligible, if it actually had wide release this year, but if it did, then you should go see it. It's good fun. I think we did cover it on the podcast at the time, but yeah, it's very nice, it's very sweet, it's got an enjoyable sort of big dark comedy future, which I really enjoyed spending time in. It's got 2 actors playing an incredibly charming romance. Yeah, I like this film.
Yep, I will also nod towards that film. Yeah, and my other honourable mention is a similar thing, which is, films seen at the London Film Festival this year that I don't think were released, so hard for you to see them. But yeah, my other honourable mention goes to The Zone of Interest, which is a film set in Auschwitz, but with Auschwitz very much in the background, focusing in on Camp Commander Rudolf Hess and his family life. It's also incredibly disturbing. I can't really say it was one of my enjoyable films of the year or something that I loved, because it was just a horrible, harrowing, really upsetting experience to watch. But it definitely deserves a nod. So yeah, it's getting an honourable mention. It might be on general release next year. We'll see if we cover it when it hits cinemas, if it does. But yeah, if you do get a chance to see it, be warned, but it is very good.
Yep, and my final honourable mention is Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Among Thieves. Didn't quite make the top 5, but yeah, in the field of sort of fun, zippy action comedies, which have kind of dominated cinemas for the last nearly 20 years. Yeah, this is one of the better ones that came out this year. It's got a lot of character, it's got a decent amount of emotion, and it's just a good laugh. It is kind of basically just fantasy Guardians of the Galaxy, but hey, nothing wrong with that if you do it well.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed that. Gave it a good review at the time, and yeah, stand by it. Right, so yeah, rolling on to the best films of the year, starting with our 5th favourite film of the year. Nick, do you want to go first?
Speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy, here comes Volume 3. This is, the 3rd volume of Guardians of the Galaxy, written and directed by James Gunn, completing the trilogy, exploring the dark secrets of Rocket Raccoon, and bringing the whole storyline to a close. And I really like this. This is, of course, one of the 2 successful superhero films of the year I mentioned earlier. It's a sweet conclusion to the whole saga. I laughed, I cried, I had a very good time.
Yeah, I really like this film. Narrowly missed out on being in the top 5. But yeah, it did show that, Marvel can still do it. And when they do it well, it works. It's, got a lot of heart, a lot of emotions, lots of great scenes. Yeah, I guess it's James Gunn's ability to do great action, generally moving character bits, good comedy, and the occasional really, really good needle drop as well. So definitely very entertaining.
Yep. If you want to see it, I'm sure you have. But go right ahead. What's your number 5, Alastair?
Yeah, so rolling on to my 5th favourite film of the year, it's Barbie. We've already discussed it. It's a great film. It's just like funny from start to finish. It's got, crazy, colourful worlds of bizarre different versions of Barbie and Ken. And it goes from that to then throw in the real world, various things about toy companies satirising themselves. And it's just sort of, this very bizarre, colourful sort of sugar rush of a film. Yeah, it's funny, it's great. No wonder it was a big hit.
This film was very funny, very sweet, very, very, very silly in an enjoyably dedicated, devoted way. I really enjoyed this.
Excellent.
And my number 4, a brief detour from the thrilling world of big-budget American films. This is Polite Society, the directorial debut of Nida Manzoor, who created We Are Lady Parts. 2 sisters must go on a fighting rampage as one of them is dragged into an arranged marriage. And it's a good time, this film. It's very funny, it's very sweet, and it's got some impressively good fight scenes lost in with that. I really like this. This was a big surprise for me.
Yeah, I love this film. I thought it was great. Yeah, really kind of picked up that Edgar Wright, Simon Pegg, Cornetto trilogy energy of crazy, over the top, action and things like that. But in a sort of character-based domestic British setting. Yeah, it's definitely the best successor to Shaun of the Dead since Shaun of the Dead. So can't recommend this film enough. My number 4. Discussed briefly on the podcast in the recommendations section, it's Past Lives, the drama about 2 Korean children who are separated when one of them moves to America, and then there's a back and forth at various points in their life when they meet up again and showing how they've grown apart through the difference between living in Korea and living in America. It's a really nice, quiet little film. It's got really great character drama. It really, I don't know. It's one of those things when it's just really pitched at a real, believable level of you can believe these are real people, real drama. It doesn't have emotional fireworks, but it does have, a real, believable sense of observing real people interacting. So it's a quiet film, but definitely one of the best of the year.
I haven't seen this, but it does sound like it's got some enjoyable literary novel vibes. I've seen this quite highly rated in a lot of best of year lists.
Yeah, I think The Guardian had it as their number 1 film of 2023. But I certainly can recommend it.
Okay, my number 3, already mentioned, it's Barbie by Greta Gerwig. And I really enjoyed this. I laughed, I smiled throughout. It's got an enjoyable level of sort of straight up satirical silliness, which I always enjoy. A certain level of really on the nose satire. Margot Robbie and Ryan Gosling, both amazing. So clearly we both liked this.
Yeah, it was great. I loved playing kind of spot the Barbie cameos, all the different ones, like Nicola Coughlan turning up as the diplomat Barbie, Ncuti Gatwa there as one of the Kens, all the things like that. Amazing cast they assembled.
Yep, great film. I believe the most successful film of the year, financially speaking, and deservedly so. Fair enough.
Yeah, I can believe that, considering the amount of people I saw seeing it on release day.
Yeah.
And my number 3, also discussed in the recommendation section of the podcast, it's Rye Lane. very charming dating comedy set around, the Peckham and sort of Brixton area of London. That's just really hilarious, just sort of great character comedy, really high density of joke. Yeah, it was a sort of unexpected hit of the year that I just hadn't even heard of. Saw the trailer, thought that looks quite funny, went to see it. It turned out to be absolutely hilarious.
Yeah, I watched this on Disney Plus quite recently on Alastair's heartfelt recommendation, and yeah, it is really good. It is really sweet. It maybe peaks slightly early in terms of humour. There's a long bit about bottles of piss about a third to a half way into the film, which I'm not sure it ever tops. But yeah, it's a good film. It's fun.
Yeah, that's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, could be, I think, the funniest scene of the year. Just
Possibly,
taken in isolation. This on Disney Plus. Go see it if you've not seen it already.
Okay, and for my number 2, we just did Barbie, and guess where we're going now? It's Oppenheimer time. This is, of course, the aforementioned Christopher Nolan drama about the father of the nuclear bomb. Well done him. But yeah, this was really good. This was really one of those examples of subject matter and director coming together into beautiful harmony. This is just exactly the right sort of thing for Christopher Nolan to make a film about, this sort of somewhat analytical film about this one genius making a terrible mistake. I'm not suggesting that this whole film is a metaphor for Christopher Nolan making his Batman films, but I am perhaps saying that yes, this combination of creator and subject matter work very well together, and I really enjoyed it. The 3 hours flew by.
Yeah, I thought this was brilliant as well. Yeah, again, assembled a phenomenal cast. Cillian Murphy, Robert Downey Jr., Florence Pugh, additional supporting cast, bringing a huge number of people from history, making and bringing it all to life. What is quite a complicated story, but making it absolutely electric to watch. So yeah, I did really like this film. It may even appear in the list at some point. However, number 2 position, it is, it's already been mentioned, it's Polite Society. Which I again thought was brilliant. Just also like a really sweet story about following your dreams. I love the main character wants to be a stunt woman, which fits with the kind of zany madcap humor of it, and a really nice story about the relationship between 2 sisters and their desire to follow their dreams. One wants to be an artist, one wants to be a stunt woman. It was a really great film. Big surprise, hit the year, but I actually loved it, and looking forward to the second series of We Are Lady Parts, which is next year.
I obviously already mentioned this. It's a really good film. If you haven't seen it, then go and find it. Must be streaming somewhere by now. I don't know exactly where, but seek it out wherever it is.
Okay, drumroll time.
Well, everybody. It is a truth universally acknowledged that when a decent Spider-Man film is released in a year, it probably appears somewhere in Nick's top 5, and when a really good Spider-Man film is released in a year, it's probably going to be number 1. And so, we come to Spider-Man, Across the Spider-Verse, the second film in the Miles Morales Spider-Verse trilogy, in which our hero goes deeper into the Spider-Man multiverse and meets absolutely loads of them, including, of course, the actually already mentioned this episode as well, slightly sinister Spider-Man 2099. I love this. I'm fully aware this is possibly a bit of a personal subjective thing, and maybe the real film of the year is Oppenheimer. But nonetheless, the sheer hysterical fun of just watching all this spider madness unfold in front of my very eyes. I love this. I was grinning the whole time.
I thought this was excellent. Absolutely amazing roller coaster of a ride. Beautiful animation, elevating the art form of animation, the way that it blended so many different styles together to give each spider person and their reality like a distinctive identity. Great story, excellent cast. And I thought this was definitely one of the hits of the year. Also, narrowly missed out on being in the top 5. In fact, I think I had this as my number 6, so it was very, very, very close. But I did think it was excellent, and I'm very excited for the concluding part whenever that comes out due to strikes.
I don't know when the last one's coming out. It was originally scheduled to come out within a few days of my birthday, which would have been great, but that's not happening anymore, so never mind. Right, so Alastair, I believe you may have already hinted it, but what's your number 1?
Well, sadly, it's not Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, which I did really like and also nearly put in the top 5. But no, of course, my favourite film of the year was Oppenheimer. It was, absolutely devastatingly powerful. One of those films and you're just kind of speechless for a while after seeing it. And wrapped up in it is just this brilliant, metaphor of they generally thought they might literally destroy the world when they tested that atomic bomb, and a lot of drama is made out of that. But there's this sort of brilliant undercurrent of they may not literally destroy the world when they press the button to detonate the first atomic bomb, but there is very good chance, sadly, that they may have started a process that will destroy the world. So just on that level, the great cast, the great filmmaking, the cultural success. Definitely the biggest, most powerful and best film events of the year, Oppenheimer.
As I say, I suspect realistically that might be the case for me as well, but god damn it, I just love that Spider-Man. But this was really good. As you say, the looming sense of underlying dread and I don't know, almost faint cosmic horror of this film, even if it is on screen mostly just about men in suits talking in hearings, was just magnetic. Yeah, great film.
Yeah, that's Christopher Nolan's ability to make that kind of film really, really well. Yeah, he did it really well in the best bits of his Batman films, and in other films from like Inception and many of the other films that he's directed, the ones that worked really well. But yeah, here I think it's this is his masterpiece so far. And yeah, if you haven't seen it, I recommend seeing it. Right, so hopefully there were 3 films that we both mentioned.
Yes. Well, obviously number 1 is Oppenheimer. So I guess the question is now just Barbie and Polite Society in which order?
I guess on one level, does it make sense to have Oppenheimer then Barbie, as they are the big cinematic, their day, the Barbenheimer day, was the biggest cinematic day of the year. So
yeah, on the other hand, you did have Polite Society higher than I had Barbie. So yeah, let's go Oppenheimer, Polite Society, Barbie. Let's try and appear cool and indie.
Yeah, nice to have a British film in the top 2.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a great film. They're all great films. It's nice to see there was some really exciting stuff going on this year.
Yeah, no, so I'm happy to not compromise. That's a good top 3. Happy to recommend that everyone listening goes and sees all of them. Okay, and into the second half now, it's time to talk about the television. And of course, as with film, there's been streaming wars, there's been strikes, there's been a lot of things getting in the way, but still there's been some big shows this year. There's been The Last of Us, the final season of Succession, the triumphant return of Russell T Davies on Doctor Who. So yep, there's some good stuff out there, but again, is there perhaps an increasing feeling that we don't know what the next big thing is? Alastair, what do you think?
So yeah, I guess we discussed streaming's wars already, and yeah, one thing that happened this year was that I didn't cancel any streaming services. I do feel that at some point a rationalization has to take place. It is just too much money, especially as said, they're going up in price. Amazon are now going to try and squeeze more money out of it, to watch stuff without adverts, which, when you're trying to watch Dune and it's like 3 hours, that's a lot of adverts. Yeah, it's been possibly, again, similar to we said in the past. Yeah, probably TV is more leading the cultural conversation than film is. There's definitely things this year that, broke out from the confines of being just a TV show to like being most talked about things on social media, in the press, general discourse. It's where a lot of the attention of our culture is focused. But yeah, there's still a wide range of competing options. This kind of rationalization has not occurred. Possibly my least used streaming service is Apple TV, but kept hanging on in there this year because of Foundation and Slow Horses. Thus, sticking to the rule that I have, that I must be interested in at least 2 shows on a platform to keep paying for it, because there's no point paying for a platform as a private streaming service for 1 show alone.
Yeah, I think a lot of it is maybe cultural siloing as a whole has become so widespread that there's just not that much that leads the conversation widely anymore. There's just so much stuff that half the time when I'm talking to someone and I say, I'm watching this, they either haven't got round to it yet or haven't heard of it. And I know I spend half my time with people saying, have you seen this show? And me going, no. Won't go round to that.
Yeah. No, exactly. Even like talking to colleagues at work, they live in like an entirely different streaming universe that's like filled with true crime shows and reality TV shows about selling property in sunny bits of America. So yeah, there's a whole other universe that people live in. And it's kind of the sort of siloed, polarized form of our cultural conversation. There's only just like a few colossal things that seem to have like smashed through and got to the point where like absolutely everyone's talking about them. Barbenheimer being one. Taylor Swift, to be honest, possibly the few thing that like actually everyone is like aware of and on some level has an opinion on. And a couple of TV shows that I'm sure we'll come to discuss in detail that actually did smash through the silos and actually get everyone's attention this year. But we live in a very atomized cultural landscape.
Yeah, which on some level I guess is demonstrated through the amount of streaming services we have, but on the other I think makes it even harder for these things to continue, because if there's like everyone can think of one show they'd like to watch that is on each streaming service, then would they bother giving them £10 a month for this? Probably not. At best they'll probably just give them £10 on one occasion, smash through that show and then cancel it.
Yeah.
I mean, fortunately, I'm not planning on making the weird mistake some people seem to make where they act like they're personally invested in the success of massive media conglomerates. It's not actually, a huge problem for me personally if Paramount Plus fails, and I don't feel like I need to backseat executive that service. But it does seem very weird and bitty and surely unsustainable.
Yeah, it was certainly more convenient when everything was on Netflix. And that's not just me griping, that is just general sense that these things work better when they're all in one place. I guess, terrestrial TV works well and everything everything was on it because you just paid your TV and then you could watch whatever you needed to. But yeah, there's certainly been a sense of some unusual things coming through this year. I guess maybe because like TV's cheaper to make. That there's chance to be more experimental. I think partly also these streaming services in their sort of content arms race, they had, or at least had at one point, deep commissioning pockets, and there was like a huge amount of talent out there they wanted to snap up, so they were throwing money at unusual, interesting, strange projects. There was a big variety of stuff. I mean, some of the stuff isn't so cheap to make. Isn't there something mad that like She-Hulk cost 20 million an episode?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of money.
Yeah, well, there's the sort of vague streaming service feeling of, you've made a show about that, have you? And you spent a huge amount of money on it. That's quite an obscure thing. Okay.
Yeah.
And there was a period, but that seems to be happening about once a month. And nowadays, it seems to be spreading out a bit, which is perhaps a sign that streaming services have, again, stopped pumping quite as much money into content, and that we're now just seeing sort of the dregs of the initial arms race filter their way out.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Some are just there to link into wider media franchises that exist across film and TV. I mean, we had Ashoka this year, being like, just another continuation of like the Star Wars universe, which was entertaining and things like that. Didn't have the cultural impact that Andor had. Yeah, there's a lot of this sort of stuff is all like kind of packaged up together and kind of sold as like a big thing. It's like, this is your one-stop home for everything Star Wars, from the big films to the TV shows to the animated stuff.
Yeah, although not really enough of that to build your entire life out.
No, exactly, yeah. So again, similar to films, like, is the big rationalization coming? But it's not come yet.
No, I have seen some observations on Twitter about television that people increasingly miss long-running series that come out regularly, and you sort of spend time with the characters and build a bond with them, and I think there's some truth in that. I mean, I think it still kind of occasionally happens with sitcoms, like, you still get What We Do in the Shadows and Ghosts coming out semi-regularly. Like, I think Ghosts has done a series every year for most of the last 5 or 6 years, and What We Do in the Shadows, again, seems to hit annually reasonably well. But yeah, there was definitely a period when, dramas used to do that as well, and that seems to have floated gently away, which I think has led to think people not getting quite as wed to things as they used to.
Yeah, I do miss the time when, you were guaranteed to get a series of the show that you liked each year, providing it hadn't been cancelled. But now, you can sometimes go between 2 to 3 years between seasons. Like, one example is, I think we talked about in the last episode, was Domina. Yeah, first season 2021, second season 2023. It's not like, an epic Marvel show when they got like actual Hollywood stars. I can see why they don't do a season of Loki each year. Tom Hiddleston's busy. But yeah, this show that, starring mainly TV actors, that primarily takes place in about 4 different rooms of Romans just talking and betraying each other. It'd be nice if that came out once a year so I could stick with it and not have to spend quite so long revising the Judeo-Claudian family tree every time I need to watch a season. But yeah, it'd be nice if that came out regularly.
Well, yeah, especially considering that seasons have not just gotten further apart, they've also gotten shorter. Seasons went from 22 episodes to 13 episodes, which I guess I can see the argument that, air quotes, cuts out the filler. But now they're getting towards 6 to 8 episodes. I feel like there's a certain amount of slack in the pacing which is missed, and B, why does it still take so long to make them?
Yeah, exactly. One of the reasons why I really like Slow Horses is that actually it comes out semi-regularly. You get 6 episodes twice a year. So they come out weekly, and then there's a little preview for the next season at the end of each one, and actually something you can follow on like a regular basis.
Yeah, I mean, as more than one person has said on Twitter, it's like, oh my god, they've done it. The new streaming services have invented old school broadcast television. And people are thrilled at this new innovation.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it only costs like billions to do it. Yeah, and it's things like BBC, old school broadcasters that are just sticking to old release schedules, like you say, doing 1 season of Ghosts a year because that's how you make a TV show. It's how you keep people following along with your comedy. Make sure there's at least 6 episodes every 12 months.
Yeah, which, in the old days, I believe Americans used to make fun of the Brits for their shitty schedules, whereas nowadays, to be honest, a show that's actually reliably producing 6 to 8 episodes a year, every year, more productive than most American shows, isn't it, guys? Or at least certainly most American streaming shows.
Yep. Who's laughing now? Well, us at
on this show, no one. But,
or us laughing at Ghosts because it's actually funny.
Yeah.
So, no, who knows, again, future uncertain.
Future remains uncertain, but it does appear that some of the long-running subplots are coming to a head, so who knows where we'll be this time next year. Probably saying similar things, but you never know.
You never know.
So, the worst one, the bad one, let's get the negativity out the way.
Right, yeah, so, The Turkey, the worst TV show of the year. I almost feel bad doing this if it wasn't so richly deserved, in that, it's Marvel again. and it's Secret Invasion.
I don't think you need to feel bad bullying the multi-billion-dollar corporation, Alastair. It'll be okay.
There's also a good point. But yeah, this show was, hands down, the worst thing I saw this year. It started badly, it got worse. It was, somewhere between nonsensical plotting and just complete lack of both tension and humour led to this show just being definitely the pits of the year. And we thought Falcon and Winter Soldier was bad, but no, they could do worse.
I did put Ant-Man as my worst film, and I sort of mimbled and equivocated a bit and said, well, it's not bad, it's just kind of boring. Well, Secret Invasion actually is that bad. Yes, this was not a good TV show. It was the worst thing I saw this year, and it's not even close. It felt like everyone involved stopped caring, except for maybe a couple of the actors during a couple of scenes. So, never mind Marvel. I did give you number 1 and number 5 in my top film list, so you'll be okay.
That's true, yeah. But yeah, overall, maybe not a great year for Marvel, or one of their worst years. Yeah, a few honourable mentions. Well, the honourable mention I've got down is Doctor Who, which, I enjoyed the 60th special, things like that. It was all good fun, and I enjoyed the Christmas special with Ncuti Gatwa. Yeah, now full-time doctoring. I feel that, we need to see, a full season of Ncuti Gatwa and Russell T Davies back to form, a complete opinion, partly because, there's so much hype around the return of Tennant and the 60th. But, definitely enjoyed some Doctor Who this year, which was good.
I also had Doctor Who in the honourable mentions. As you say, it was the Christmas special was very much a Russell T Davies Christmas special in that it was very big, silly and broad, but it did still give the actors a good chance to show off, and I enjoyed it enough to be interested to see where they go. I've also got The Last of Us, which was one of the biggest shows of the year, probably, in terms of general collective interest, but didn't quite reach my top 5.
Lovely stuff. Yep, there's a lot of good stuff this year. Actually, as I think with previous years, the top TV was hard to get it down to 5. However, I have done that. So, counting down my top 5, in position number 5, it is Extraordinary. Lesser known, or at least flew under the radar a bit, superhero comedy on Disney Plus, set in a world where everyone has superpowers, apart from the protagonist. And it's just very silly and funny, and it's got lots of bizarre and interesting, unusual superheroes, such as the guy who, if you touch him, you just instantly orgasm, or the mum whose ability is to control technology, but she doesn't understand it, so it's just a chaotic mess. It's it's a fun show. Made me laugh thoroughly throughout with a very high density of jokes. It's a good one.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. People who have seen my full top 10 on the MFV website will know that this came in at number 9 on that list, so it isn't quite in this top 5. Alastair, for once, ranking the superpowers thing higher than me. But yes, this is a good fun series, and if you haven't watched it, then check it out, because it's on Disney Plus and more people should. Right, and my number 5, already mentioned during our earlier chat, it is Apple TV's spy drama Slow Horses, at long last, a cross between The Thick of It and Spooks, in which a bunch of useless spies get either killed by their enemies or verbally murdered by their horrible boss. This is a very good show. Incredibly slick, incredibly fun, incredibly well-paced, action, tension, excitement. If you like spy stuff and you're not watching this, and you have Apple TV, I guess, then good lord, why?
I thought this was great. Really good, especially this most recent season they did just in the run up to Christmas. Really kind of amped up the tension with every episode. Even did a pretty good action sequence on what probably was quite a small budget. Goes to show you don't need loads of money to do a great drama.
And the final couple of episodes of series 3 of Slow Horses were some of the tenser stuff I've seen all year. Great stuff.
And I'm still thinking Jack Lowden, next James Bond.
I almost think it's too obvious, but I'm sure he could do it.
But no, it's a good show. Rolling on to number 4. Mentioned in the recommendations section earlier this year. It's Drops of God. A TV show that's a combination of French, Japanese and English about, the rivalry to inherit the vast wine estate and the posthumous love of this huge, famous wine critic as the competition in order to taste and identify obscure wines between his daughter and his prodigy. His daughter being French and his prodigy being Japanese. And it's just an interesting, drama about, the love of a difficult parent seeking absolution after death, and also, just really interesting, makes, absolutely electric TV out of people trying some wine and going,
Honestly, this is so specific and idiosyncratic by the sound of it. I haven't seen it, but it probably sounds like it must be good. It's something that must surely be either a masterpiece or obtuse and terrible. So I'm sure this is good. I should probably watch it.
Yeah, I think like great writers and great producers or whatever can find the drama in anything by getting engaged with character and things like that. Obviously, yeah, but yeah, they find a way to make it, someone pouring out a bit of wine and then trying to work out exactly what variety of grape it is. Actually, very, very tense TV.
Okay, my number 4, a latecomer, covered in, I think, the most recent episode of the podcast before this. This is Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, the long-awaited, much-demanded anime reinterpretation of the Scott Pilgrim series, the comics and all the films from about, 15 years ago? Yeah, this was extremely good. This was far more fun than I expected it to be. It was silly, it was at times surprisingly emotional, and it really pushed the ridiculous semi-video game logic boundaries of the Scott Pilgrim world to, I would say, their logical extent, but to be honest, further than that, to an illogical extent. Really, really enjoyed this.
Yeah, this was great. Another one that narrowly missed out on being in the top 5. But yeah, it took me by surprise that it worked as well as it did, partly because it took me by surprise how much they deviated from the original source material. Also, yeah, props for getting out the pretty much entire original cast back, and it is a phenomenal cast. And it's great to have them enjoying themselves doing their characters again.
Yeah, it does seem like one of those things where everyone involved had a good time. It's just got a lot of fun energy to it.
Yeah, and that comes across in how fun it is to watch.
Yeah.
Right, moving on to the big numbers. Number 3, it's something that we talked a lot about this year. It's The Bear, specifically the second season of The Bear, featuring the incredibly tense Christmas special that was punishing to watch, the really sweet, quite quiet Copenhagen episode. And obviously, a really cathartic season finale. It's really tense. It's really emotional. It's kind of electric TV. Can't get enough of The Bear.
Yeah, no, I love this. I've really enjoyed the sort of slight pivot from constant stress in the first season to sort of quiet character study in the second season with occasional moments of stress. And yeah, I liked all the episodes Alastair mentioned. I also really liked the one where Richie goes and learns the value of service at a top-level restaurant. I thought it probably sounds quite trite when I describe it like that, but it's actually one of the most effective, redemptive journeys I've seen on TV in a while. What a time.
Yep. There's a real sense of character progression this season. Yeah, and a phenomenal range of guest stars, including from Olivia Colman to Bob Odenkirk and Jamie Lee Curtis, iconically, yeah. So It's good.
It is. I liked that. I also liked, at my number 3, Poker Face, the gimmick crime show starring Natasha Lyonne as a woman who could always tell when you're lying and uses this to obviously solve murders as she travels around the country on the run from various crime people. Yeah, I thought this was great fun. I just thought this was incredibly entertaining to watch. I thought they did a great job of developing a different, weird mystery with its own engaging characters in every episode and playing heavily off Natasha Lyonne's natural charm. Great show.
Yep. Another excellent show. Another one on the genre of everyone loved this because they've brought back Procedure of the Week and different location, different cast, different mystery. We've reinvented serial TV from the 70s, 80s, and 90s, and everyone loves it. But I thought this was really, really good. It worked really well. It was a great TV show, and it was each just episode was just really tightly plotted, tightly written. They'd come up with a good mystery each week. Yeah, all killer, no filler.
Yeah. If you think TV nowadays is too many, 8 to 13 hour movies, then I assure you, Poker Face is nothing if not a TV show.
Next up, my number 2. Yep, it's already been mentioned briefly. It was The Last of Us. Yeah, something that maybe it shouldn't be a surprise that this was a big hit based on a video game that is incredibly good. And obviously, starring Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey, both of which are excellent. But yeah, I really thought this show was great. Just a really beautiful found family story. You have a grieving father, finding a lost teenager to save. Yeah, it did zombies well. Again, we've seen a lot of zombie stuff, but there is always scope for a good story if you can find a good way to tell it and the right team and the right writing. I thought this was really, really good. Yeah, one of those shows that I couldn't wait each week for the next episode to drop and my time just to dive back into it. So yeah, number 2.
Yeah, I cannot deny this was really good. Maybe I am just too disillusioned and jaded about apocalyptic zombie dramas after all those episodes of The Walking Dead I watched. But yeah, nonetheless, this was definitely incredibly well executed. And of course, Alastair didn't even mention the crying we all did about the 3rd episode with Nick Offerman.
Yeah. That was that in itself is just a sort of superb, just isolated as a film in its own right.
Yeah. Obviously one of the best episodes of the year. So yeah, no, a great show. Arguably I did it wrong. And my number 2, a show which hasn't been mentioned yet, so I suspect it might be mentioned again. It is, of course, Succession, the HBO Murdoch family patriarch dying media empire satire drama, which finally came to its end this year. They did it. The big inciting incident that has been threatened since episode 1 finally happened, and the siblings had their final desperate struggle for power. I thought the show was probably coming towards its end in season 3. I felt like they may have finally run out of combinations of siblings to ally with each other. So yes, I was pleased to see that they did perhaps correctly realise that they'd reached that point, and yep, they brought it together in this final season. The last couple of deals take place and the final big breakdown at the end. And yeah, I thought they more or less nailed it. I thought this was a great conclusion to a good series.
Yeah, this was absolutely electric TV. I don't think it'll surprise anyone to reveal that it is my number one, because it's the one TV show that I've not mentioned so far. Yeah, I thought it was a brilliant ending. Yeah, like, as you say, probably reached a natural conclusion, but yeah, it was one of those things that, like, yeah, the ending kind of smashed out of the kind of TV cultural conversation into like kind of general discourse being a thing everyone was talking about. And especially that run of, I think, like the last 3 episodes, each one like more devastatingly brilliant than the last, between the election episode, I'm not going to spoil it if you've not seen it, so I guess the election episode, the penultimate episode, and then the final boardroom showdown that wraps everything up right at the end. Brilliant writing, brilliant acting, everyone involved take a bow. Yeah, phenomenal TV, one for the ages.
Yeah, and of course the episode earlier in the series where the big inciting incident happens, also one of the big episodes of the year. Yeah, okay, so we've made it to Alastair's number 1, and now similarly my number 1 is going to be the big show that everyone knows I like, but I have conspicuously not mentioned. It's The Bear. The Bear is the best. I pretty much said my bit about this earlier, but yeah, I really liked the sort of quiet character study of it. I really almost surprisingly invested in these characters at this point. I thought they did a great job of delving deeper into them. I found Richie's Spotlight episode that I talked about particularly affecting, but there's a lot of good emotional stuff in this second season. I finished the first run of The Bear thinking, do they need to do another one? And yeah, they sure proved me wrong. This was great. I am now happy to let them do a third.
Yeah, they really found a new way to inject new drama into this show, and like not make it just like, more of the same. There's actually a lot of progression with the second season. And I'm excited to do with the third season as well. I think the creators said that there's going to be less shouting and stressing in the kitchen in the next season, which is nice to show they're not just going to do the same again. They're trying to grow the show, find new ways to make it entertaining.
Well, yeah, I was interested to see whether it's just a case of season 1 and 3 being relentless shouting and season 2 just being a pause in the shouting. But yes, it's probably good to do something different again. Part of me feels like surely there might be an element of trilogy structure here. Like, is there really going to be a season 4? But at this point, again, I've just got to have faith.
But it is good. It is very good. Yeah, definitely absolutely standout TV of this year. Standing head and shoulders above the competition.
Except in your chart.
Apart from Succession. I meant most of the competition, apart from the 2 shows I put above it. Especially Succession. But there aren't many shows like The Bear. It's one that people actually talked about. Yeah, again, one of those things that like cut across silos. Almost everyone I knew was watching it, talking about it. Yeah, people at work talked about it, despite the fact they don't talk about, Extraordinary or Marvel TV shows.
Yeah, it has been interesting to see The Bear, from my perspective, kind of come from almost nowhere. Like, I'm sure there were people out there who were familiar with the actors or the writer beforehand, but it didn't come from, someone who's a well-known, I don't know, hit maker, I guess some might call them. It's not written by a famous writer or anything. So it was exciting to see it basically appear last year and just become the success it now is.
Yeah. Great show. All right, once again, there is definitely some commonality in the list.
Right, so consensus is what? The Bear and Succession, obviously, in some order. And then
the top 2.
A bit more variety below that. Is the next common thing The Last of Us?
I think The Last of Us, and you put Extraordinary in the in your top list.
I did.
But number 9 is quite far back.
Yes, although The Last of Us was at number 7. Spoilers for the website post. So I guess, Bear, Succession, Last of Us?
I guess so, yeah. I did really like Scott Pilgrim, and it very, very nearly made it into the top 5. I mean, it's all good stuff. But I could go with The Bear, Succession, Last of Us.
Okay, cool. Although also watch Scott Pilgrim if you're a Scott Pilgrim fan.
Yeah.
Well, that's a really stupid thing to say, but hey.
Or just, even if you just watch the film and haven't engaged with Scott Pilgrim since, pick it up because, it's got that same zany charm.
Okay, and that was 2023. Thank you very, very much for listening. If you have enjoyed this podcast and you want to get more, including our full essay-length write-ups of what we liked in TV and film in this year, or, last year by the time you listen to this, I guess, you can go to our website at moderate.fantasyviolence.com. And if you enjoyed the experience, why not leave us a nice 5-star review on your podcast app of choice or anywhere else that will let you review us.
You can also find out more from us on Twitter by searching for MFV Podcast, or find more from us on Facebook by searching for Moderate Fantasy Violence. You can find more from me on Twitter, Threads, Blue Sky, probably some other places, by just searching for my name, Alastair Ball. You can get more of my writing at redtrainblog.com or on the website Everything Theatre.
And you can get more from me at nickbryan.com on the internet, or as Nick Bryan on Blue Sky, or nickbryan.com on Instagram. Probably the main places at this point. I continue my attempts to use Instagram stories more, so do read those and encourage me to continue. Aside from that, we'll be back in a fortnight, and if you like us counting stuff down, then it's another good episode for you, as we'll be doing What If Season 2, and you know what we always do with animated anthologies. And as well as that, we'll be discussing a show we've actually already mentioned in this episode. It is the 3rd season of Slow Horses. Okay, see you then for that. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Happy New Year.
Oh yeah, Happy New Year.